Have you been shortchanging the most important relationship you have, the relationship with yourself? And has the way you have communicated with yourself been at a far lower standard than how you communicate with your romantic partner, your friends, and your workmates? This video gives you a way to take full responsibility for how you relate with your thoughts and an empowering way to work with anxiety. First, a note. I'm a licensed psychotherapist in the state of Minnesota, and it's important to tell you that if your anxiety levels are very high and are persistent, or if you have experienced panic attacks, which can include tightening in your chest, please seek the help of a therapist and a medical professional to treat this mental health condition. Having said that, here's a way that we can work with anxiety that's quite different. We think of anxiety not as a noun, as if a cloud of anxiety passed overhead and began to rain fearful and troubling, worrisome thoughts upon you. No, we're going to think of anxiety instead as a verb. And we'll use a name to do so. We're going to identify those thinking patterns as anxieting. Now, what thinking patterns are we talking about? It's the thinking pattern of perceiving that the future will be filled with landmines and obstacles and things that can go wrong and troubling kinds of things that can come up, whether they have much possibility of actually occurring or not. And this way of thinking, this pattern of thinking, we will call anxieting, and we'll take responsibility for visualizing a future through a pessimistic lens. And just note, most of what you've previously worried about did not pass anyway. I mean, think about the last week, the last 2 weeks, the last year, and all the things you were concerned about in the moment. Did they come to pass? Any of them come to pass? And if so, were they at the level that you thought they might be when you first thought about them in a worrisome way? My guess is no. So this pattern of thinking, which we will now call anxieting as a verb, is a pattern of thinking that you've had that deliberately looks through a pessimistic lens. And if we take responsibility for it, we will say this to ourselves: I've just been anxieting. And if you have been anxieting and you take responsibility for it, it's really under your control. You can say, oh, I've been anxieting. Now, one way to know it's under your control is to keep doing it. So I'm going to ask you to do something kind of odd. I'm going to ask you, once you know that you've been anxieting, to keep anxieting, but do it consciously. Do it intentionally. Go ahead and manufacture some more thoughts along those lines about how awful things are likely to go in the future. Just try it out. Now, my guess is you won't be able to sustain it very long because it won't make sense. But you can do it. And if you can do that, you can also do something else. You can take responsibility for anxiety, for that pattern of thinking, and just not do it. Think about something else. So I invite you to do so. Now, there's one other thing that really helps, and that is affirmations. Now, you've heard of affirmations before, where you kind of say positive things, maybe in front of a mirror, and by saying them over and over again, you self-hypnotize yourself in order to do things better. Well, that may have some validity, and it may be a little questionable at times. What I'm talking about is something quite different. It's a paradoxical affirmation. So I'm going to ask you to do one with me. Maybe a couple of them. If you've been anxieting, I want you to repeat this after me. I love being fearful about the future. I love to have fear-ridden thoughts about all the things that can go wrong in the future. I really enjoy doing that. I enjoy anxieting. It makes me happy to think of all the anxiety-filled ways that life can unfold to my detriment. Now, could you do that and keep a straight face? Let's try it again. I love anxieting. It makes me happy. I love thinking of all the things that can go wrong. Repeat it after me now. I love thinking about all the things that can go wrong. You see what I'm saying? Hard to sustain, isn't it, without breaking up laughing? So try that out. Once in a while when you're anxieting, either keep anxieting intentionally for a while and notice that it will fall apart, or do some of those paradoxical affirmations in regard to anxieting. And again, remember that how we communicate with ourselves, and if we do so in uplifting ways rather than disempowering ones, we will feel better. We'll forge a better relationship with ourselves, and that will help us have more harmonious and uplifting, optimistic relationships and communication with others.